Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Astro weather. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. To those of you guys who are my Sunday morning crew, we're going to take a look at the astrology for the week ahead. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I work both with the Sabian symbols as well as tarot to better understand what's going on in the cosmos. We meet here every Sunday to take a look at what the stars have in store for us. There's a lot going on this week, but thankfully, if you guys are subscribed to my channel, like I know you are, you have already gotten some of these topics covered, but I'm just gonna refresh your memory a little bit. So big themes. This is gonna be the week of March 5th through the 12th, 2023. Saturn enters Pisces, okay? Like literally just an hour just after we have a full moon that's gonna be taking place in Virgo. I went in depth and talked about this moon and why it was so important, some of the midpoints that are triggered. But Saturn is gonna be spending 2.5 years in the mutable water sign of Pisces. We'll be talking more about that as we get into this next week. There's already a video that I put out on that. More so like historical, not as much focus on the signs, but I did take you through the 12 signs. I'm also working on some stuff for those of you guys who are having your Saturn return, so don't worry, I've got you. Followed by, like I said, a full moon in Virgo, which is going to be taking place this week as well. We've got Jupiter coming into conjunction with Chiron, hopefully asking us to open up to do some wound healing, figuratively or literally, depending on where you've got it in your chart. It's also opportunity for big healing because Jupiter is going to enhance that. Venus has been there recently. We talked a little bit about the themes of the medicine that we can get from all three of these planets teaming up this week. You'll be feeling some of those conjunctions for a little while, actually. It's going to be into about maybe mid-April or so. And we have the final Mars-Neptune square. It's going to be beginning towards the end of this week. And you guys are also going to feel that clear into mid-March. If you guys have seen my 2023 astrology video where I talk in depth about why March is just so active, so many planets changing signs. And so we're starting to feel the peak, I think, of this happening sometime right around mid-March. Let's go ahead and break it down. We're going to go day by day, starting with today, March the 5th, Sunday. Well, we wake up today with the moon in Leo coming into an opposition with Saturn. We've got a number of 29s here. So generally when the moon is in Leo, we're feeling creative, we're feeling warm, and just really focusing on what brings us joy, what feels like fun. But the moon has made some bang up aspects here. We received a square from Uranus yesterday. We have also seen the moon in some harsh angles, some quincunx to Pisces. It is dreamy, it is magical, but the reality is going to set in as we're coming into the moon opposed Saturn energy this evening. And it will be, I think, actually going into the early morning hours, but it'll be while we're sleeping for the most part, depending on where you are. That moon will hit 29 degrees. Saturn is at 29 degrees. We may feel a sense of feeling really emotionally detached in the late evening hours going into the early morning of Monday. We've also got the sun coming into a sextile with Uranus. So that's allowing us to really focus on our dreams, our manifestation, our meditation, what we're visualizing, what we're feeling, right? Sun in Pisces has us kind of in our feelings. And how we're using those visions or intuitive hunches to make physical changes in our everyday life and prepare for some of the big shifts that are going to be coming here in the weeks and months ahead. Later in the evening, we will see the moon ingress into Virgo. So let me show you guys that, which is then going to put a little bit more of an emphasis on Mercury. And Mercury is now, oops, sorry, went a little too far ahead there. We're going to see, there we go. The moon move through Virgo in the late hours. Here we go, on the 5th. We're still on Sunday. It's going to move into Virgo in the afternoon, going into the evening. So it hits that opposition at 29 degrees in the evening hours on Sunday today, and then it's going to drop into Virgo overnight. And things get a little hairy the 6th and the 7th and the 8th. I'm just letting you guys know this now because part of it's the full moon, part of it's just all these lunar aspects. We wake up in the morning on Monday, and the moon immediately starts forming a trine to the north node. So this is actually lovely. When the moon is in aspect to its own north node, we're feeling like whatever circumstances are taking place are in alignment to help get us better stabilized, especially in Taurus, or feeling secure. Focusing on organizing food, resources, values, grounding energy is going to be so important throughout the full moon in Virgo. It's not even funny. So grab your plants and your rocks and your crystals and all the stuff that you guys like to use just to stay grounded. Maybe it's just as simple as taking a walk outside, you know, and having a nice healthy meal. What I'm not wild about is the moon's opposition to Mercury. So I talked a little bit about this in the full moon video about how it makes it challenging to communicate, where the moon in Virgo can be very focused and kind of nitpicky about emotions and connections with other people. We're very particular. We're kind of finicky. That moon in opposition to Mercury, which rules Virgo, is kind of saying like we're trying to be more organized and structured and analytical. We're trying to make sense of things, and Mercury in Pisces is just like out to lunch. It's off floating on a beach floaty somewhere, probably sipping a drink, not really checked in. So what you guys are going to notice this week is that a lot of things are going to feel unclear. There can be a sense of not knowing what the future holds, but when you start feeling like that, tune out, find a way to be able to take some alone time, rest, recuperate, meditate, reflect, and hold off on having any serious detail-oriented meetings, conversations, anything like that Monday and Tuesday. Just trust me on this, because there's going to be some misunderstandings and some misconnections. Now, we're also seeing that Mercury, when you saw this a little bit on Sunday, but you're seeing it today as well. In spite of that Moon-Mercury opposition, Mercury has been in a sextile to the North Node, okay? So Mercury in Pisces is much more detached, streamy, intuitive. So if we're feeling like we're not getting the responses that we want, or things aren't really feeling like they're going according to plan, that Mercury sextile to the North Node is basically saying ground your energy out, rest, reflect, and take time to think about things before you make any moves. Okay, so there is a sense of needing to reflect before making any big decisions. Really, the only aspect that you're going to see is that Mercury moon opposition for the most part. Then the moon is going to keep moving through the sign of Virgo. And we are going to have that full moon on the 7th. So we're in the energy, part of, I think, just from the moon making an opposition to Saturn overnight, moving into the Virgo moon. That was the precursor for coming into that energy, feeling limited, separate in some way. And now we're trying to assess and make sense of everything. All right, so we're still on the 6th in the evening. The moon is coming into its fullness. And that will be the morning of March 7th. So this is Tuesday, okay? So everybody's going to be like, what's going on? It's a full moon. And it's a full moon that's in a square to Mars. So there's visibility issues, potential for storms, severe weather. There can be stormy moods. There can be a sense of having some kind of like crisis or delay or accident or health-related challenge. And we're having to kind of think swiftly and on our feet. In this full moon video that I did, I talked to you guys about the Sabian symbol for 16, 17 degrees of Virgo and how it talks about a volcano exploding and erupting. So we can feel, especially with Mars in a square during this moon, that there is this potential for like just word vomiting everywhere, or getting frustrated and just giving somebody a piece of our mind, or perhaps kind of getting stirred up a little bit and getting angry and agitated, and having conversations before we have all the facts, right? So we want to kind of de-escalate some of that stuff. But by the same token, the Sabian symbol talks a lot about allowing for whatever eruption or kind of depressurizing that needs to take place takes place. So this may even be a time where you're trying to de-escalate, or you're saying, you know what, I'm just under a lot of stress, I need a moment. Watch that video if you guys want some more insight on that. The nice thing is that there are some outlets The trine to Uranus, I think, is allowing us to make physical changes and work through delays, crisis, or even insecurities, and find new emotional patterning, find new ways to respond to things, okay? But we know full moon does create some wonky energy, and the mutable squares is definitely going to be in action for another week or so. So we're going to continue to feel some of this kind of confusing Neptunian energy out in the world. Now, like I said, the intensity will continue post full moon. So even if the full moon is happening in the morning, we're going to see that the moon is going to keep making aspects. It's going to keep moving through the sign of Virgo. It will come into a square with Mars around, like 3:30 Central Time, so 4:30 Eastern and 1:30 Pacific. You're going to see the moon in opposition to Neptune. So having a difficult time emotionally relating, feeling like we're kind of disassociating, or we're not sure, or we're concerned, or we're worried, we're trying to get all the facts and the details. And we're also seeing the moon in a square with Mars. So it's going to be in the air all day on Tuesday. If you happen to have any planets around, let's say 14 to 18 degrees of the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, or Pisces, pay attention. This is definitely going to be a little bit more action-oriented for you personally. And the chaos really ensues like through the evening. So from pretty much, let's say right around 4-ish Eastern time until the moon comes out of the opposition with Neptune, which is going to be in the evening hours. Tuesday is a time to just get grounded, get situated somewhere. Ideally, you're not trying to do anything that's going to involve heavy machinery. We're not trying to drive long distance. We're not trying to sit down and make sense of things or anything like that. Like, we really just need to decompress. I think with Mars being the focal point, we may find that, writing, journaling, right? Because Mars is in a mercurial related sign. Taking a walk, these can all be things that can be really helpful for diffusing some of this energy. And some of us may not even have any conflict at all. We're just feeling irritated because we're picking it up off of, just what we're interacting with throughout our day. So I would really recommend people working with either words of power, invoking things, saying, the space is protected, using a little bit of fire and air element, burning some incense, something that's just going to kind of clear that off, especially if you're having to go out into the world, or you're going to an office, or you're working with people. When you come back home, there is definitely a need to kind of burn off some of that energy. For some of you guys, it might be as simple as just taking a brisk walk or working out a little bit in the evening. That can help give you some outlet for what's going on. So the mutable confusion will be pretty much all evening. That's going to take us into the morning of the 8th. And in the early morning hours, we're going to see the moon ingress, and it's moving into Libra, depending on where you are in the world. So that'll be a nice shift because we're starting to break away from the full moon energy. We are going to see briefly right when the moon switches signs, it's still going to in conjunct and quincunx Saturn. So we're still reflecting on, okay, maybe we've taken, a day or two to ourselves to reflect before we meet others. When the moon is in Libra, we do deal more with relationships, partners, clients. Like, there is a sense of working with other people. So I'm wondering if part of the moon transit for the next 2.5 days or so, all the aspects that the moon is going to be making to Pisces is basically representing, okay, how do we clean this up? How do we make this better? How do we learn how to communicate? Have we had enough time to kind of let this air out? For, Libra energy, Pisces is 6 signs away. So it does represent that there's been delays or a sense of reevaluating something before finishing it. So allow yourself that time. We're not going to see too many aspects with the moon. Obviously just before she switched signs, she was in a trine to Pluto. So she still kind of has that trine hanging out for a little bit. And while we are with the moon in Libra, we're going to look at Venus. And so Venus is finally moving away from Chiron, coming into conjunction with Juno. That does kind of represent more focus on taking the initiative in relationships and partnerships. And on Wednesday, the moon's going to keep moving. We're not going to see too much happen here other than the moon in conjunct Mercury. But that's going to be early morning on the 9th. And while that quincunx is happening, we do see a Moon-Jupiter opposition. So this is going to be in the morning on Thursday. Big emotions, big feelings. And it's not just Moon in opposition to Jupiter, which Jupiter in Aries is about the independence, right? The self, the focus on our own identity, our own plan, our own belief system, and where that's challenged by others. But the moon is opposing Chiron, bringing up, wounding on a personal level. And it's also going to come into an opposition with Venus. So there is a sense of longing, right? That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting with the moon in Libra in opposition to all of this. Relationship longing, longing for togetherness, longing for companionship. We might be feeling this pretty strongly throughout the day on the 9th. And one of the nicer lunar aspects we're going to see is later in the evening, overnight, but late in the evening, we're going to start seeing the moon trine Mars. So we're feeling action-oriented, motivated. Maybe we've been thinking about something all day and it's been on our mind. And then finally we get home and, we kind of decide to write that email or call somebody and, want to say, hey, how's it going? What do you need? What's going on? Because the relationship between Pisces and Libra is, I think, the blind spot in relationships can be not checking in, not communicating, not being direct, right? If there is some sense of like being passive, I think a lot of the Mars Neptune stuff can be passive aggressive, finding ways to be able to reconcile that. And also if you want to connect with someone, if you need help, people aren't going to know unless you say something. So that's also one of the lessons because Libra is a very social sign. With that trine to Mars, I think we're feeling more emotionally motivated maybe, especially even going into the next day to want to make some changes. And Moon is coming into an opposition with Venus. So we're still feeling a little bit of that longing, and the Moon quincunx the Sun. Thankfully, that a lot of these inconjuncts between the Moon and the Sun and Neptune will be happening while we're sleeping. All right, so then we've got going into the morning of the 10th, so this is going to be Friday. We have got Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Aries at 14 degrees. So I talked about this a little bit this last week. If you have any personal placements between 12 and 16 degrees of Aries, Sun, Moon, Rising, North Node, if it's your Chiron return, if that's your Venus there, opening up to healing, right? Healing wounds, that's a huge theme. You will probably be feeling that while the moon is in Libra a few days leading up to that, but that's really bringing this theme, especially at a 14, of like self-esteem issues, individuals having issues with their personal resources and feeling kind of strapped for cash. And it's pretty safe to say a lot of people are feeling like that right now, but also learning not to equate what you have to a sense of worth, right? And so it can be whether it's numbers in a bank account, physical goods and possessions. There's definitely going to be a lot of longing for what we wish we had, whether that's a person or some kind of security. We're going to see the moon move through Libra, and it's going to come into a square with Pluto. That's one of the last big aspects that the moon will make later in the day. And so we got a couple 29s again here. We've seen a few of those this week or so far. So 29 degrees, that anaretic degree. We see Pluto there. So when the moon squares Pluto, moon in Libra, partnership relationships, square to Pluto, power structures, issues, power struggles, going back and forth with another person. And Pluto is in a superior position here. So even though the moon is coming into the square, Pluto's saying, no, I'm not going to give it up. So there can be some fear in regards to relationship dynamics that can be coming up. Fear of not having control, that can also be coming up. And moon will make an opposition to Juno. Juno is about partnership, but this is about the relationship and the partnership with the self, and like where sometimes we have to make decisions that's best for ourselves, that challenges relationships. Watch for this. I don't really feel like a lot of people are going to see this 29, 29, 29, and Pluto will be the focal point. So There can be some make or break situations in relationships that are going on. That is very, very much a thing. As we get into later in the day, we will see the moon ingress into Scorpio. So you'll feel that shift in the PM hours on Friday. And as soon as it comes into Scorpio, where it's not entirely comfortable, it immediately starts coming into conjunction with the South Node. So this is that emotional clearing, purging, that I was talking about. Friday night, not the best date night. Let's just leave it at that. You want to do something, I would recommend maybe doing something earlier in the week or waiting a couple days, but this would not be the time that I would do it. And at least the moon comes into a trine with Saturn. So there is something with Saturn and Pisces saying, yeah, it's time to release. It's time to let go. It's time to wrap this up. And your feelings are justified, right? I've said it at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to say it again. Saturn enters into Pisces, so that's going to be on the 7th. That's going to be on Tuesday. And Saturn will be here for the next 2.5 years. So go check out my Saturn video that I put out. Any aspects that we're getting to Saturn now is very different than what we've had over the recent past few years. We've had nothing but squares and oppositions to Saturn. The nodes have been squaring. We've seen Uranus square. Now that we're going to have Saturn in Pisces, we're going to see trines to the North Node briefly, sextiles also, trines to the South Node, sextiles to the North Node. So we're actively building towards our future, clearing the past. And we're also going to start to see more so in the next year or two, sextiles to Uranus. We'll see in the spring when Jupiter goes into Taurus, Jupiter and Saturn sextile each other. So totally different Saturn game. Although Saturn and Pisces can be challenging, we're definitely looking at hidden realms, subconscious things in regards to our dreams and where we're feeling limited, and definitely tests in regards to our spiritual strength. But for the most part, we're going to see much easier aspects. So I encourage you guys, while the moon goes into Scorpio, if you're just feeling emotionally exhausted from this week on Friday, stay home and avoid toxic behavior, avoid the gossip, avoid the processed food. Try to focus more on clearing, detoxing, cleaning up, really reflecting on emotional boundaries, home boundaries. Great time to be just doing some, purging and purification magic. With all these planets that are in Pisces, we're going to see that this week and really building into a strong conjunction next week at 25. Mercury, the mind, the sun, the energy level, Neptune, our dreams or desires, all are going to be meeting with each other. So we're almost feeling like we're swimming in the cosmic soup, right? This is why they say beware the Ides of March, right? Right as you're getting to the end of Pisces season, it feels like everything just kind of is a little chaotic. So if you're feeling like that, right, whether it's going to be on Friday night or even going into Saturday, the beauty of the Scorpio moon is it'll trine Saturn. It's then going to start coming further into Scorpio and trining the sun and also Neptune. So dreamy, healing, therapeutic, psychic, intuitive, great time to be doing Reiki work or doing meditation or hypnosis. If you're somebody who wants to break a bad habit, I'm really liking the moon going through Scorpio Friday and Saturday, trining all of this stuff. It'd be a wonderful time for a hypnosis session or a healing session. So that way you guys can plan ahead if that's something that you're wanting to do. What I'm not crazy about is that as we go into Saturday, in the morning, very early in the morning, the moon will be conjunct the South Node. So this is where we get sick of our own shift. We're like, that's enough. We're going to cut it out. We're letting this thing go. You might wake up a little emotional. There is this feeling of mourning and loss. And there's some pretty heavy energies in Pisces. It's normal to be feeling a little bit more run down, to be feeling a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more empathic. You guys are really going to feel this on Saturday and Sunday. As the moon keeps going through Scorpio, she is really picking up on the Mars square Neptune. Okay, so remember, Mars rules Scorpio. So does Pluto, but we know Pluto's at 29. He's not going anywhere yet. But we're feeling this third Mars-Neptune square. Guys, we've had the Mars square Neptune several times. It's been since the fall of 2022. If you guys remember, we've had Mars in Gemini. It went retrograde around Halloween of 2022. And it made several squares. I believe it was right around then. I think it was also again in November, and this is the final one. So we're getting ready to come out of the retrograde shadow soon. But let me tell you, it's gonna go off with a bang next week. I'm gonna dedicate a whole video to it. But Mars is action, desire, drive, and motivation, okay? It's like putting the pedal to the metal. And in Gemini, it's with words, with writing, with our ideas. It can be also about social media. And it's an opening square to Neptune. So there is something brewing that seems to be about conflict or attacks or aggression. It is in an air element. I've said several times, watch for these squares because we're gonna see extreme weather. But I also feel like this is gonna be about things that move, transportation, you know, cars, vehicles, could even be about planes and some visibility issues or some flight delays, weather delays. But also we're seeing more opportunity for there to be toxic spills, liquid spills, chemical spills, right? So I think we're gonna be possibly, as much as I hate to say that, seeing more about that out in the world. And the moon's gonna keep moving through Scorpio, so as it does, it will eventually hit an opposition with Uranus, and that's gonna be later in the evening on Saturday. So also not the best date night, I think. Moon opposed Uranus means that we're feeling a little bit emotionally on edge. There is a sense of needing to adapt to things. We can very quickly become consumed with, do I have enough? Do I feel safe? You know, all these feelings can come up. The way out for this is going to be the moon trine Mercury, okay? So Mercury in Pisces, you gotta lean into the feelings, you gotta listen to the intuition. The water signs are very psychic, they're very intuitive. So if you have a feeling like the vibes are off on Saturday, if you're having a hunch that you just need to stay home or that you need to take a different way driving home or that you need to avoid someone or something, listen to that hunch. Because Mercury being in Pisces, the only way that we can connect is with the higher self, right? So we have to listen to that through dreams, through intuitive feelings. And moon trine Mercury is great for explaining our feelings and our emotions. So it can be a wonderful time to share some of these feelings or write about it. And also wonderful time for divination. That moon in a trine to all these planets in Pisces. I love Saturday and Sunday. Like if you're somebody who wants to have a whole tarot evening, if you're trying to have a seance, if you're trying to do some scrying or you're trying to do some magic work, this is a wonderful time for it, especially if you're wanting to work with the element of water. And then we're going to continue to see the moon build towards a trine with the sun and also Neptune. That's going to happen over the evening. I would spend Friday night in like a cleansing bath or a detox bath, and then pull some tarot cards and do some stuff to focus on reflecting on what comes up and set the vibes, both in a sense of the atmosphere, because that can be very much Pisces, like lighting and also music and stuff, before going to bed, with hopes that maybe you would get some, you know, some dream recall notes to kind of work with to give you guidance in terms of what you're supposed to be doing over the next week, because we're gonna have to be checking in with our higher selves and making sure that we're getting some kind of clarity. There's somebody out there, you just gotta ask for help. Okay, so over the evening, that trine will happen. That's why I think it's going to promote definitely a lot of really prominent dreams. We wake up in the morning and the sun is in a trine with the moon. So even though the moon in Scorpio can be a little gnarly, at least it's trining the sun and Neptune. So that's going to be on Sunday. Feeling empathic, feeling sensitive. We're feeling generous. Maybe we're able to release and let go collectively, but still not wild about that Mars square Neptune. It's not going to be exact. That's not actually going to happen until it hits 25 degrees. So this is about a degree off. So you'll see that briefly. But when we see Mars square Neptune, lower energy levels, there can be more scams, there can be issues with honesty, there's something that's generally concealed. And Mars is making that opening square. So it's saying that something is running with a story or a concept or an idea or an article. And a lot of people from the full moon in Virgo, really all the way until the time that we have these squares, I'll show you, there'll be more next week. There's a lot of like, what is going on? This is the video, this is the conjunction I'm going to make a video on right here for the 16th. Where we have Mercury, Neptune, and the Sun all conjunct at 25 in an exact square with Mars. Oh boy, and just wait until that moon hits Pluto. That's when everybody starts to go, wait, what's going on? It'll be like a record scratch moment. So I'm gonna make a whole video about that. But until we come out of these squares, like until we get Mars out of a square with Neptune, until we have the spring equinox, you know, here when the sun goes into Aries, and then we have that new moon, this is like everything's getting flushed away. That's literally what's happening this week. So my advice is don't fight it. Try to go with it. Don't lose yourself in the chaos. Don't trip. There can definitely be a sense of like future tripping and worrying about things until we have clarity. I definitely recommend watching the videos that I've put out this past week just to get you guys prepared. I plan on doing a video, a second video for Saturn going into Pisces. And I'm also going to do a review of the Mars through Gemini, just to kind of touch on some of the things that's happened as we prepare for Mars getting ready to go into Cancer, because that's going to be a very, very big energy, especially looking at the equinox chart. So that's this week at a glance. Hopefully you guys are going to cruise through some of this stuff. You're going to kind of stay zen. Let me know how you're doing with this energy. I'm here also on Fridays. So if you guys want Fridays at 5 o'clock Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'm doing readings by donation on the channel. Usually I'll post the link in my community tab. You can sign up for that in advance if you'd like. We alternate between tarot and astrology. So we are going to be doing tarot this next Friday. I'll get that link out for you guys. Equally, if you guys want to book a personal reading with me, you can by checking out my link below. You go to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com if you have questions about your own natal chart. And we're just going to keep putting these videos out as the week goes on, so that way you guys are prepared and you have all of the info in terms of what's coming. Please do me a favor, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you in terms of how you're doing with this energy. What do you guys think of this triple conjunction? Like, I keep looking at it and I'm like, this is it. This is like the last song at the disco before everybody realizes the party is over. Okay, all right, that's enough for me. I'll see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the week ahead. Take care.